Hey guys, welcome to another video. We're here in our African preparation for the new DLC. I'm so excited about a lot of these new pieces I downloaded off of the workshop that have just like fun little African flares to it. It's using a lot of the pieces that are already in the game that just highlight and allow you to kind of make your zoo looked cohesive, and the themage throughout the entire thing is very important to me when I'm doing a themed zoo or a zoo around a DLC. I want it to feel like that zoo was created for this DLC. So I went back through on the wildebeest little enclosure right here. Oh, not wildebeest. This is the warthogs. Now the zoo ends up taking like a completely different turn to it, so just hold on tight because we're in for a ride. I started amping up some of the things I already built last episode, and then now I'm going through and adding three large enclosures. I want to do a zebra enclosure here on the right side or the left side of the zoo, depending on which way you're facing. I end up doing the barrier with this custom fencing, which ends up being like way too expensive, which if I've learned anything in franchise mode, the more money you spend or the prettier your zoo looks, the more expensive it's gonna be, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just blow through my whole budget here like pretty quickly, so then I'll also talk about some money management and stuff like that in this game. Now I am really excited. The new DLC looks super great. It looks like we might get some new animals, but we're definitely getting a new career mode, and you know that is my thing. I love career modes. So as I'm over here trying to find a really cool way to make a glass enclosure from this angle, when you walk in, I want you to come in and just see the zebras and it just be like really jarring. I think zoos that have a really big animal at the beginning ends up generating a lot of like, wow, this zoo is underpriced, or you get the people to be like, whoa, this is such a crazy zoo, this is more than, I can't believe I paid only like this much money to be a part of it. And that helps with some of your money generation during your zoo build, because if your zoo is not making you money, you will go into debt very quickly and will like spend a lot of money on a zoo that no one's spending money on. So I try to steer away from the basic walls in the game, since I've tried to level up my building experience and my building. If you can see, I'm still making square enclosures. It's like my safe space. I don't know why. It's the Zoo Tycoon in me. If you also played Zoo Tycoon as a kid or as a young adult, you'll know that the square enclosures are where it's at, because there was no curved enclosures. There really wasn't very many creative ways of making dynamic enclosures. So as I'm restructuring this enclosure to be a little bit bigger, because I realized it was way too small for zebras, even though it's like kind of a mini enclosure, and I wanted something that like the animals could be in, but kind of be like a breeding pen, if that makes sense. I love the idea of making zoos like conservation areas or like a breeding program type situation. But at this point, I was playing on live. I try not to pause as often on franchise mode because you will not make money, so you have to like balance this playing pause, designing something so people don't get mad that the animals are unhappy, and then also the ability to make sure that you're generating income. Now another thing that I noticed is that I'm always more focused on aesthetics and like making things look good than functioning, but I've been also trying to like make sure that a lot of the enclosures that I'm building are also super aesthetic, but also have what the animal needs, what would look good, but also have all of the requirements for that animal. And as I'm building this tiny little enclosure. I'm like, oh no, it's not big enough. So I'm kind of like scrambling here to try to get it to still look pretty aesthetic and with the fencing that I want. Even though I don't know if I'm in love with this modern take on African aesthetic, because it's like a mix of like taking I mean, I've never been to Africa, so you can tell me, but all of the Africa themed things, but making it feel very modern and still making it feel very zoo-like. That's not even the right describer. More aesthetically modern, I guess, is more what I'm trying to say, versus it looking like the zoo is just like in the wilderness somewhere with, you know, or having that appropriation of culture be just described as this, like, I don't know, like woodsy / like, you know, the assumption that like Africa is still like barren wasteland, or like there aren't buildings with, you know, just I've been trying to kind of make it look more realistic. Not that I know if South Africa has many zoos, but my friend who lives in South Africa says it's very modern, and, you know, it's, you know, she lives in a neighborhood, and they, you know, I think a lot of the perception of some of the places in the planet are definitely different than the way that they really are. So I was trying to incorporate that in this zoo, that it like was a zoo that could be found in Africa, or it could have been a modern zoo that you know, represents or wants to celebrate a culture in a country that has amazing animals. You know, there's always like the Expedition Africa like section of a zoo, and I wanted this to be like the whole zoo. I don't know if that's making any sense, but a lot of the time when I'm designing things, I feel like I have those thoughts in the back of my mind, but then at the same time, I don't know if they're being translated right, you know, within, you know, me designing it. Because I don't really love the idea of zoos that look like they don't belong in a city, or don't belong in a major area where there would just be also normal people living, or you know, like a school bus full of kids that are gonna come for a field trip. Like, to me, that's like the purpose of zoos. That is like the best part about zoos, is that it's allowing people who don't live in a place that might have this wilderness or this level of appreciation for animals on a daily basis, or even on like, I mean, you know, some places it's like, I mean, if you just think about it, there's some places they don't even have that much greenery in some places in the world. But then there are also places that have tons of greenery and they celebrate it constantly. But zoos to me are always like the part of a city that I love to see. Like Red and I, my husband and I, when we go on vacation anywhere, we try to see if they have a local zoo or an aquarium, or anywhere that I've traveled, I've always go to an aquarium or a museum or something that allows me to see other places in the world and how they appreciate those places in the world in their own city. I think some places have a really good way of doing it. I think some, you know, areas have a very strategic way of doing it. But yeah, so I started a second enclosure just off of this enclosure, also realizing that it was a very small enclosure. But that's okay, because I expand it later anyways. But it is one of those enclosures that I was like, oh, there could be many animals that would fit into this area, but let's kind of play around, see what we can do, see if we can get like a, you know, a unique way of building. Like I said, I've been trying to steer away from a lot of these square enclosures, but somehow it's just like inevitable because my brain just like is satisfied by the symmetry or like the aestheticness of the top down, but no one cares about the aestheticness of the top down. The people do not see that. Like, it does not matter. That's why I really don't do a lot of enclosed spaces as well. So many of the great creators that I know on this platform, they do these amazing enclosures that have like covered areas and walkable areas and places where like like specifically in like the casino career mode has like a great walk-through underground viewing. And that's just not something that I like enjoy building, because when you zoom out you can't see all the hard work that you put into it. But if you like go through someone else's perspective, like someone's perspective that's walking around the zoo, it looks amazing. So I sometimes have to like separate myself from that. That was something about Zoo Tycoon that I really, really loved, is that you could get down onto the ground and be like a zookeeper and walk around your zoo and feel what it feels like to walk around. And you could control the person pretty much, because you drop down as like a zookeeper. So you drop down and you're that person and you're walking around and directing and taking pictures of things from that perspective. And I think it made a huge difference. At one point, this enclosure is the wild boars, and then I realized way too small, not the vibe, does not have the aesthetic that I was wanting for these animals. Also, we have the warthogs just on the other side, so it's like, well, maybe those two should be together because they kind of show that they're like kind of from the same geome, or like kind of from the same like branch of animal. I also was like going crazy looking at all the workshop items that I have. Sometimes I have to remember that I am not in sandbox mode and remind myself that I am in a franchise mode, because I go kind of crazy. So when I started doing this path is when I was like, oh shit, this is where the wild boar should be. And then I recently saw someone built a very beautiful concave, I don't even know if that's the right word, but like a lowered enclosure. And that's something that I have always wanted to do but just never mastered, because it's just not my field of expertise, I guess you could say. So I'm trying to focus on maybe some of that and practice some of that. So once again, I used this super expensive fence to build the outside of the enclosure and realized that I ran out of money like instantaneously, and I had like $1,000 to my name, and then I had like $0 to my name. So then I was like, okay, let's just do a basic fence on this enclosure specifically, and then we can go back and change it. It was something that, wasn't my favorite decision, but like I was like, we have to do it for budgeting sake. And that's part of doing franchises, that you can't just build whatever you want. You have to kind of stay within some parameters. So I use the standard fencing. I get mad about this door. It's stupid. I want the lower door because it matches the size of the fence. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm like, shit, I need to take a loan out. I need to maybe get a second loan. Maybe I need to pay off my old loan. Like, where are we at money-wise? Have I gotten to a place where people are like, wow, this zoo is worth more money than what I paid to get into it? This is like right at the point where you're like 3 enclosures, two exhibit animals, and then now it's time to like bust out the food and the merchandise. It's hard to sell merchandise when you don't have animals for people to be like, I want a zebra hat, because I saw the zebras, and I want a boar plushie because I saw a plushie, Now some of those items will sell regardless of you having those animals in your zoo, but to me, like, lore wise, doesn't make any sense. So I was going through and seeing what animal did I want to put in this area that would be big enough for people to be like, whoa, look at all these cool animals in the beginning of the zoo. The zoo is worth every dollar. And Springboks are like the cheapest and I think the most aesthetic for the zebras. So if we wanted to combine these 2 enclosures eventually and make one big African enclosure, we absolutely could. So I wanted to use an animal that would go well with the zebras. I do love the interspecies bonuses, so I'm a big person on, like, if I can make that happen, and if I'm gonna have 2 enclosures right up against each other, and then eventually I'm gonna delete one of the entrances and just have one large enclosure, we will do that. Now, I know a lot of the African animals, have that ability to cohabitate with other animals within. Like, I know the ostriches are great. I know, like, you can have the elephants with other animals and stuff like that. And I plan on doing, like, a larger elephant enclosure. I have, like, 1,000,000 elephant enclosure blueprints from the workshop, and I just, like, want to use them so bad. And I always use them in my like sandbox zoos, and I know I have a really cool giraffe one, but I think I'm envisioning like a giraffe meet and greet type situation in this zoo, that kind of has like a leveled up area. Like, I want to have like a raised area, maybe with like a show and stuff, and like an educational show for the giraffes, because then you can have like their heads be up against where people would be standing. I don't know, I don't do elevated zoos very often, so I really want to do it. I go kind of crazy with this enclosure. I got so inspired to do something so, like, I don't know, it just felt so natural looking, if that makes sense. Now, something you got to remember is your challenges in franchise mode can get you a lot of money. So something that I did at this point in me playing is that I was like, okay, we need to focus on food, we need to focus on merchandise, but I love to have a merchandise booth like in the front. So I was thinking of putting that food station that I was just looking at the franchise mode in that square right there that was the exhibits. But then I was like, oh no, this needs to be a store. Like, this needs to be the store. That this has to have the merchandise for people and everything. We got the Springboks into the enclosure. I go through, make sure they have everything that they need. I will say this is probably a very minimalistic layout for a Springboks. They don't need a lot. They did need a hard shelter just like the boars, so I went in there and gave them one as well. I had a few of them escape from like jumping on top of the enclosure. It's like a whole thing, but I think I kind of just skip over it real quick and fix it. I also expand this enclosure just to have a little bit more space for them. After moving the exhibit animals, I was maybe thinking about putting food at this area, but then my brain went, nope, food should be towards the entrance by the souvenir shop. Plus, I've been having such a good time with the souvenir shops. I've been just like, but I also started running out of money again. So, oh, see, the boars just escaped. I don't know. I guess it was just too low. See how there's like one jumpable spot? I was trying to like find if I could like find where they're jumping from and fix it, but it really wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to, but we were making it work. I also got to the threshold of all of my my electricity. So before I'm going to place a new electricity spot or a new employee area, I want to finish this area off to its fullest and then move forward. So I'm out of money. So I'm like, shit, I'm out of money. So let's get the $50,000 loan, pay off the $6,000 I still owe on the $20,000 loan, and let's build a souvenir shop. Because as soon as I build a souvenir shop, the money is going to fly in. I have plenty of people in my zoo. I have over almost 2,000 people in the zoo, and I only have like 3 enclosures. I was like, all right, this is it. Like, let's go hard in the paint. I re-themed all of the pieces that go into the souvenir shop to match like the aesthetic of the African, like yellows and reds and like tans and neutral tones. So I mess around with this quite a bit. Now I do have a downloaded souvenir shop wall that has a lot of the aestheticness of the souvenirs, like this one right here. It's not functional, it is just aesthetic, but to me it allows you to not spend a lot of money on things that you have to spend money on, like the barrier, like the souvenir shelving and stuff is very expensive. So I did that aesthetic wall. I had more boars escape, which was like killing me. I'm like, all right, you're about to like not have a viewable enclosure. I'll just have to go back and change the heights of those or do something with the custom fencing again. Now, I had an envisionment for food trucks. I've been obsessed with food trucks in the space. I think that they add an element to why people are eating in your zoo. I go through a few of these food truck options. I'm not in love with the idea of the size of this one. Seems too small next to the other one. I also find this really cool bus stop that I've downloaded, and I wanted to implement it, but then it didn't fit the vibe of what I was trying to do in this front area. I tried to make it work. I was just like, it's just not really what I'm wanting. So instead of getting distracted again, even though I did get distracted again, I tried to finish the roof on the souvenir shop, and then also finish off this like educational area. I love to add like an educational like bug area or even an exhibit area within the souvenir shop, because it gets more people inside of the zoo as well, inside the store as well. I put a cute little window there was a 2-door entrance thing, but the souvenir shops only have 1-door entrances, so I just kind of go in here and put see, I really love this taco, but that was the size dimension I was wanting, was this taco, or this caravan pulling another food truck kind of vibe, based off of that other workshop item that I had. So I was like, let me match the standard food truck to the one that I just built, put some more seating down for people, because I realized I didn't have as much seating as I would probably want for people to eat. Checked out, I got 2 of the achievements or the challenges done, so I got an extra like $2,000 for that. I tried to make these really cool plushy standing like the standing, I don't know, souvenir shop like things that they kind of like freestand in the middle of the road there. And I also wanted to do more on this side as well. I kind of move this all around quite a bit. Like I move a lot of the things. I move the plushies, I move the puzzles, I move like pretty much everything around. Just because I wanted to put the actual things that people can buy from on this wall versus the other wall, which is more just aesthetic. But it makes it look really, really nice. I also love that it's working now. For a long time, like it just wasn't working. The souvenir shops like were not doing what they were supposed to, which kind of sucked. But now they're finally functioning and people are entering and leaving and buying stuff, and you can change all of the pricings of everything. It's just done really well. I wish there was like little baby terrariums. I wish they had like things like a bug enclosure. But you know what I'm talking about, like the little bug enclosures. Like it would be like a little butterfly chrysalis or something like that. That would be very cool, I think, in a zoo souvenir shop. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and like it down at the bottom here, and leave a comment about, you know, if you like this video style. This is different than the last video I filmed while playing last time. This time I filmed in time-lapse and did a voiceover. So let me know which one you like better. I know this one's much shorter, but it just kind of, you see a lot of more work done than me just showing you the process of me doing it while talking about it versus doing it then me talking about it. Sorry, I'll stop confusing you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!